Happy New Year! I know it's been a while, but I've been pretty sick, taking a boatload of antibiotics to get better. I'm nearly there. Today is the last day I'm on antibiotics, and then hopefully tomorrow I should feel right as rain, so things can get back to more a normal stream of content. First off, rest in peace, Brody Lee. That was extremely tragic. Real shocking to wake up, what was it, I think the day after Boxing Day, and reading that AEW did a fantastic tribute to him last night. I haven't watched any WWE, so I don't know if they did or didn't do a tribute or sufficient, because I've been pretty sick and been away enjoying the holiday. So yeah, so I don't know. I'll have a look at that. Anyways, we are here to talk about upcoming releases and projects. So first up, the first attire pack for Smackdown vs. Raw 2006 Definitive Edition will be hitting this Tuesday. So if you want it, there you go. That's what's happening. Next up, if you're a Patreon, you already know I started a Looking Through Prototypes video series that we started with Just Bring It. Now for regular YouTube, in a couple of days, I'm going to make the first part of the Just Bring It video for free, so you guys, it's just going to be up on YouTube and you guys can watch it. I think it's about 15 minutes is the first part, and then maybe the second part is a little longer. So yeah, so you can, that'll be up for regular YouTube, but for Patreons, in about 2 weeks, we are going to start a look through of the Day of Reckoning franchise. And it's a super interesting series of videos. One, because obviously, yes, we're looking through prototypes of Day of Reckoning 1 and Day of Reckoning 2 and seeing all the, everything from graphical changes, move bugs, move sets, glitches, different attires, different characters, you know, characters that were meant to be in that aren't actually even made and things like that. But on top of that, as I've mentioned before, is I have a whole bunch of press interviews that have been spliced in between. So you sort of see THQ's head as to where it was at in the life cycle of the GameCube. One, during the release of Day of Reckoning 1, and then especially during the release of Day of Reckoning 2, where obviously the GameCube was on its last legs and Nintendo was sort of pulling support of it. Not prematurely, but you could tell with the slate of games that there was less and less out. And as time was going on with the release of Day of Reckoning 2 and with the upcoming Wii, which obviously they had made no announcement of a Day of Reckoning 3 or even the Day of Reckoning franchise continuing, you see THQ being like, we are just trying to make the best wrestling game possible for this system, that even after the GameCube is done, you could still go back to this game and it should be super fun. And, you know, with the back compat on the Wii itself, you could just pop that in and play an incredible wrestling game. And to be honest, they did accomplish that. Day of Reckoning 2 is one of the best wrestling games ever made. It's excellent. Its graphical style to this day is still one of the best in the genre. If only it had titles in exhibition, that game would have been something else. I mean, it still is. It's a fantastic game, and I do think this series in particular shows the effort that THQ went above and beyond, especially with Day of Reckoning 2. Moving away from wrestling for just a second, if you haven't already seen, Raging Blast 1, Raging Blast 2, and Ultimate Blast / Ultimate Tenkaichi, if you live outside of Japan and Asia, are now all released as definitive editions. The first versions restore the original Japanese soundtrack. As a massive Dragon Ball fan, I only own the Japanese versions of the games, and those games have entirely different scores and soundtracks than the American counterparts or even European counterparts. They've changed it now because now they just sell everyone the soundtracks on the internet through DLC. But back during those games and on the PS2, the soundtracks were quite different for quite a few of those games. So we're starting off, all the original music and everything is restored. I'm actually going to restore the original logos. They're the same in Raging Blast 1 and 2, but for Ultimate Tenkaichi in the West, I'm going to restore it to Ultimate Blast. And then we're going to be doing character mods. Yeah, so Raging Blast 1 will have Ultimate Gohan and a few other characters that were missing. So yeah, so if you're interested, those games are actually out now. The first versions, these have different music. So if you enjoy Dragon Ball, especially the original Japanese Dragon Ball, these are right up your street. Okay, moving on, we are going to talk about a February release that has been widely anticipated, which is the release of Smackdown 2 Know Your Roles Definitive Edition. Now, I know this was super anticipated and a lot of people were disappointed it didn't manage to come out in December and I had to pull the countdown. But that's because two testers found some pretty bad bugs that I had overlooked, so I had to pull it, fix it, and those seem to be fixed, and no one has come back to me with any problems, so it looks to be on a schedule for February. So the countdown will resume in January, and you guys will get to have a look at like newer tires and new stuff, and obviously superstars and whatnot as the countdown continues, much like with Smackdown vs. Raw 2006. Now, I've been asked for about 4 months, when is Rebuilding Smackdown episode 8, which is Smackdown vs. Raw 2007, and that answer is February. I've written the episode, I've recorded audio for the episode. If I wasn't ill, I would have filmed some of the episode. So yes, we are going to be taking a real deep dive into that. In fact, I'm actually going to be doing a deep dive into that console generation as well. So it gives you sort of a real broad look as to what was happening at the time, especially on the PS3 end of things, and to why that didn't necessarily materialize of Smackdown vs. Raw 2007. I mean, gosh, I had so many friends that bought a PS3 and were just they were willing to wait to get 2007 later and just buy that PS3, and they were just completely heartbroken when they had to just get that PS2 disc and pop it in the PS3 instead of just wait a few months and get a PS3 version of 2007. So yeah, so we'll be doing a full documentary on 2007 like normal, and then obviously you'll get a sneak peek as to what is in 2007's Definitive Edition on both PS2 and 360. Okay, let's talk about Smackdown vs. Raw 2008's Definitive Edition. Some of you have already seen the brief preview that I did for about 2 minutes. It was like a quick fire question and answers video. I have now taken some of that feedback where a lot of people wanted to see me test the GM mode. I filmed a stream video which I sort of impromptu did probably, 2-3 days ago. And basically just compiling it. I think it was like an hour and 40. I think we're going to condense it down to about 40 minutes. We'll do the first episode, and then we'll cut it and then do the second episode of Smackdown. Yes, as I work my way to not only testing the Definitive Edition, but making Chris Benoit the world's biggest movie star. When is Raw and Raw 2's Definitive Editions? When are we even going to see rebuilding episodes? Very, very soon. I've literally just set up my capture equipment, so I'm kind of there, and we're going to get to, Raw 1, Raw 2. I'm really excited to do that because there's a whole bunch of stuff I want to talk about with Raw 1 on the side of things as to the anticipation that game had. Especially following Smackdown Just Bring It, and with the Xbox coming out, and that was the game I bought the Xbox for. I was not interested in Halo, and the only other things I was interested in coming from Microsoft was Sega's titles. I was fully invested in Nintendo and PlayStation's ecosystems, and I was heartbroken that Sega had pulled out of the console race with the Dreamcast. But it was really just Sega and different wrestling game on a new platform that made me get an Xbox the second Raw 1 was released in the US. So yeah, so we're going to be taking a real deep dive into Raw 1. Probably, I'm aiming for April. And April for me is a very special time because that is when did I get mine in March? Otherwise we're going to have to change things. I got mine around March or April. And so it holds a special place in my heart. So that's when we're going to look at Raw 1. And then over the summer, we're going to be looking at Raw 2. We're going to be taking a look at cut characters, cut attires, changes, all kinds of nonsense. Things that didn't even exist, that was just made on a PC and was not even playable on an actual Xbox, as pertains to Raw 2. So don't worry, Raw 2, Raw 1, Raw franchise, all that stuff is coming. A lot of people are asking me, when is the next Q&A? So if you just leave your questions down in the comments below of this, hit me a message on Twitter, or leave me a message on Patreon, with your questions, I will compile a bunch and we'll say do one in the next 10 days. Lastly, I do want to say thank you so much for all your support throughout this year. I know it has been an extremely tough year for everyone, and I hope if I was just able to bring a little joy to you, whether it be through videos, definitive editions, behind the scenes looks, even me talking about wrestling or anything else, I'm so overwhelmed and humbled by that. So yes, thank you so much. And I hope I've been able to bring you some kind of joy in this quite dark time. I hope everyone has had a wonderful holiday season thus far. I've spent the majority of mine being sick and then watching Transformers Earthrise on Netflix and then continuing to be sick because of that show. Had a few good things. I mean, but no, I can't. You're wrestling fans, you don't want to know what I think about Transformers, but you know, I was not impressed. There was like 2 things that were really good, and then the rest of it, no. So anyway, yes, thank you so much for watching. If you can, please hit that like button. If you aren't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. If you can support me on Patreon, please do at patreon.com/ScottJAY. I've got tons of downloads, tons of videos, tons of content on the page. And until next time, you guys, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.